The following three stories you are about to hear are my personal experience. In 15 years of selling, buying, and renovating homes in the Twin Cities, I've seen a lot. Old homes, strange layouts, even stranger neighbors. But there are three homes that didn't feel right. Not because of what we saw, but because of what we heard. One of my contractors refused to work alone after hearing footsteps in a locked home. A family walked away from their dream house because their kids wouldn't go near the basement. And one time, a Hmong shaman walked into a house, stared into the kitchen, and told us to leave immediately. What he said next still doesn't sit right with me. In 15 years of renovating old homes in St. Paul, I've heard a lot of strange things. But this was the first time one of our contractors refused to work alone because of footsteps coming from an empty house. I've been a realtor and investor in the Twin Cities for over 15 years. Some of the homes we buy and renovate are over 100 years old. Old wiring, old foundations, old stories. This particular home was a rambler in St. Paul with an unfinished basement. The plan was simple: update the kitchen, redo the bathroom, finish the basement, and list it back on the market. Nothing unusual. We split the crew that day. Some worked upstairs. John, one of our subcontractors, was alone in the basement. At one point, we told him we needed to grab more materials and left the property. About an hour later, he heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, walking across the main floor. He didn't think much of it at first. We told him we'll be back. The footsteps stopped. After a while, he walked upstairs to see if we returned and to check if we brought the materials he needed. But no one was there. The front door was still locked. He brushed it off and went downstairs. A few minutes later, the footsteps came back. This time, heavier. Again, he went upstairs. Again, no one. That's when he decided to take a break. He stepped outside to his truck and lit a cigarette. While he was standing there, an elderly neighbor, maybe in his 70s, walked over and started making small talk with him. The neighbor asked if he had bought the house. John told him no, he was just hired to renovate the basement. There was a pause. Then the neighbor said, "Well, this was my good friend's home. He lived here with his wife for many years. After she passed away, he was alone. He explained the last winter he hadn't seen his friends in weeks. At first, he assumed he'd gone down south, but something didn't feel right. Eventually, he contacted the man's children. They came to check. He had been found dead in his bedroom for almost 2 weeks. John said the cigarette nearly fell from his hand. All he could think about were the footsteps, walking back and forth, directly above him. He didn't even hear the rest of what the neighbor said. He immediately called our project manager and told him to come back quickly. When the manager arrived, John was pale, sitting in his truck, shaking. He retold the neighbor's story. The manager tried to rationalize with him. Maybe the neighbor just doesn't like the renovation noise. But John looked him straight in the eye and said, "I heard someone walking upstairs, twice, and the door was locked." Then John said to the project manager, I won't work in the house alone anymore. If I have to, I'll quit. John was always an easygoing guy and a straight shooter, so it's very odd for him to make up any tall story at all. From that day forward, we made sure he was never alone in the house, and whenever he worked in the basement, he kept the music loud, just in case the footsteps came back. In 2015, I helped a family search for a larger home for the growing household. What stood out about them was this: they were very particular about the basement. Most families focus on the kitchen or the size of the bedrooms, but this family, they care most about the basement. I thought this was unusual, but I didn't question them. One day, we toured a house in Roseville, a quiet suburb of St. Paul. It was beautiful, quiet street, perfect size, recently renovated, plenty of space for their kids. They loved it. After walking through the upstairs and main level, we headed toward the basement door. That's when I sensed hesitation. The wife paused at the top of the stairs and quietly said to her husband, "This basement reminds me of our current home." They went down, but slowly. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, open beams, nothing unusual. Still, something felt heavy. They liked the house overall, but wanted to think over it. A few days later, they requested a second showing. This time, they brought their 3 children to see if they liked the home before making an offer. The kids were excited, running around the main floor, laughing, exploring every room. Then I opened the basement door. All 3 children froze. The youngest, about 5 years old, immediately grabbed her mom's hand. Her eyes filled with fear. She said, "Mommy, do we really have to go down there?" "I don't want to. I'll just stay up here." The other kids didn't move either. The energy in the house shifted instantly. No one went downstairs. After that showing, the family decided not to make an offer. They chose a different home instead. At the closing of their new house, the parents finally opened up to me. They've been renting their previous home for almost a year. From the very first day, they said the rental home felt wrong, especially the basement. It was unfinished, used mostly for storage. At first, they heard small noises and assumed it was the old furnace. But the sounds were different. They heard laughter, low moaning, sometimes what sounded like whispering. The wife told me that there was always something dark and unsettling about that basement. One day, when she was home alone, she heard her daughter laughing and then screaming for help. The voice was coming from the basement, but she knew her daughter wasn't home. Panic set in. The voice kept calling her name, perfectly mimicking her child's tone. But the words were wrong. They were words her 5-year-old would never use. After that day, they put a lock on the basement door. Their children were never allowed down there again. When they walked into the Roseville house, the basement felt the same. The same heaviness, the same pressure in the air, the same fear in their children's eyes. That's why they refused to buy it. Sometimes, that strange feeling in a home isn't just imagination. Sometimes, your gut is protecting you. And sometimes, children sense what adults try to ignore. I once showed a house to a young Hmong couple and their father, who was a shaman. Before anyone said a word, he walked into the kitchen, stared at an empty corner, and told us we must leave immediately. I had a young Hmong couple looking to buy their first home. They were excited. This was a big milestone for them because they were first-time home buyers and didn't have much saved. The husband's parents were helping with a large gift for the closing costs, which also meant their father came to many of the showings. After a few tours, I realized something. Their father wasn't evaluating homes the way most parents would. He wasn't checking the windows. He didn't ask about the roof. He didn't care about the furnace. He was a shaman, a Hmong spiritual healer. In Hmong tradition, a shaman acts as a bridge between the human world and the spirit world. When he walked into a house, he wasn't looking at walls. He was sensing energy. There were times the young couples loved the house and was ready to make an offer. He would simply say no. He said he felt something. One of the most eerie experiences happened in a house in Brooklyn Park. The house was well taken care of. Fresh paint, modern finishes. It's a perfect starter home. As soon as I unlocked the door, the father stepped in first. He didn't look around like everyone else. He walked straight to the kitchen and just stood there, silent, staring at one corner of the kitchen. After about 20 seconds, he turned around and said calmly, "We should go. We should not be here." His son asked, "Why?" He replied, "There are 2 children standing in the kitchen." Then he added, "I smell smoke everywhere." None of us saw anything. None of us smelled anything. The house smelled like fresh paint and staging candles. That was pretty much it. But he was firm, almost urgent. I could sense the wife was frustrated. It wasn't easy having every home filter through spiritual approval. But they ended the showing early and we left. Later that week, curiosity got the best of me. The way the father walked straight to the kitchen, the way he didn't hesitate, the way he was adamant about us leaving early. So I looked up the property records, news articles, anything I could find about the house. So back in the 70s, there was a documented fire. It wasn't a big fire, but it was on the news that the kitchen was caught on fire and was put out by the fire department. However, there's nothing about anyone dying in the fire, nor did I want to search too much into it. That alone gave me chills. But what stayed with me wasn't the record. It was the smell. He said he smelled smoke. Not faint, not maybe. He said it was everywhere. And sometimes I wonder, if spirits relived their last moments, what would 2 children who died in a kitchen fire still be standing there for? Waiting? Or not realizing they never left?